Andiamo zitti la mano, perché lo stiamo facendo una balla, ma si vede che molla, mi sembra molla, per sapere la si vuole la mattina, quando facciamo la mattina, cosa ci può la mattina.
Welcome to Communicology. I'm Richard Talbert. I'm an associate professor of communication and media, and I love studying how people communicate. I also love studying how communication and culture intersect. So let's jump into something new today. Let's talk about echo chambers. If you're not familiar with the term, it's actually fairly easy to understand and fairly easy to describe. But the fun part is well, why do we get into an echo chamber? Why do we do the things that we do in an echo chamber? Why do we choose to stay in an echo chamber? So let's talk about what an echo chamber actually is. You're familiar with what an echo is? You speak, and it bounces off the wall of some place distant and comes back and you hear yourself. That's an echo. We love echoes. We like to go to the Grand Canyon or into caves and just yell out into the void and wait to hear it come back to us. It's a neat little exercise in physics and how sound works. In communication, though, when we talk about the idea of an echo chamber, that is a chamber, an area where you are, where you speak into it, and you hear similar things that come back to you. Well, that sounds like how most of our friend groups are set up. So then you wonder, is this a bad thing? Well, I mean, in reality, as we've discussed before, when we talked about culture, we tend to associate with like-minded people. So we're going to be around people who think similarly about a lot of things, whether that's religion, politics, sports, just personal matters, anything. That's how we tend to group up. So it's not uncommon to be naturally situated into an echo chamber where you speak and they say, yeah, oh, I agree. And, oh, I think the same thing as you do. Or they say something and you affirm them. So we were basically echoing things back and forth. So inherently, that's not bad because, again, it would be really odd for us to associate and form into groups with people who are diametrically opposed with what we believe. I believe this certain thing with all my heart. You don't. That instantly puts us in tension, and we don't like tension, so we tend to flee from that, so we find someone else, and they agree with us, so we then get together. The whole idea of opposites attract in romance and dating, that's true to an extent. Opposites do, again with physics, they attract. But how long do they stay connected is the thing. I mean, because there's that weird tension that's kind of fun and exciting, but after a while it gets old. So we tend to associate with people with whom we have like direct connection with. So we put ourselves into these groups. It's not necessarily an echo chamber per se. It becomes an echo chamber whenever we tend to exclusively reject what does not belong in the chamber. In other words, we don't want to hear conflicting opinions. So think about how you maintain your social media. You friend people, like people, follow people, whichever platform you're using, and you start to think about, well, I like what this person says. They affirm what I believe, like, follow, whatever. And sometimes, oh, this person's kind of interesting, like, follow, and then they start saying things that, ooh, I don't really believe in that. Well, do you stay connected to them so you can hear opposing views, or do you say, yeah, I don't need that in my life, click, and unfriend, unfollow? That's when you start realizing I might be moving towards echo chamber, an echo chamber situation. Again, in and of itself, that's not necessarily bad because social media is not real. I know we like to think that it is and we pretend that it is, but in reality, it's not real. I mean, the true face-to-face who we are is real. But what we end up seeing is, do we then keep that mentality moving into our actual lives, where we're not friends with anybody who thinks differently than us? And this can go to, obviously, to an extreme. Views about religion have to be identical. Views about politics have to be identical. Views about social systems have to be identical. About business systems have to be identical. About sports have to be identical. If you follow that to an extreme, you can see where this chamber becomes very, very thick, very, very tall. And, if you've ever been in an area where you can have an echo and it comes back multiple times instead of just like once. That's kind of like the feeling we end up getting when we're in that deep, deep echo chamber. Perfect example of that is after every election. Watch what happens. The people who are pro Donald Trump said, well, of course Trump was going to win. Everybody I know loves Donald Trump. Or they say, I can't believe Kamala Harris lost. Everyone I know loves Kamala Harris. Those are indicators that maybe there are echo chambers going on, because if everyone you know thought this way or thought this way, everyone you know, that's the key part, because not everyone thinks that way. I mean, we know from political landscape in the past several terms that things are fairly well divided. You have 40% entrenched here, 40% entrenched here, that middle squishy part that can go either way. And you see an election that slides, maybe 1% this way, 2% that way, whatever. And they're usually really close. The last landslide, wow, we're looking back in 1984 when Reagan absolutely crushed Mondale by winning, I think it was like 49 states. I mean, that's when it's nearly everyone voting one way as opposed to another. So if you're saying to yourself, I can't believe X because everyone I know believes Y, that's a clear indicator that you might be in an echo chamber situation. And again, it doesn't have to be politics. It could be anything. You could be talking about, doll houses or Hot Wheels cars or G.I. Joe figures or anything you want to talk about. It could be anything. It could be movies. It could be music. It could be anything. Everyone I know thinks X, therefore Y can't be real. And you'll hear this a lot of times when people talk about things, when they're surprised by something and something comes up and shocks us. And that's one of those things that quick slaps us. And usually we don't learn the lesson like, whoa, maybe I should be talking to other people. But that's the way out of the echo chamber, is if you're ever shocked and surprised, maybe you should start talking to other people. So again, if everyone thinks, X in your world and then Y happens, start asking yourself, why did Y happen? And start looking at those things, because whenever you get in the echo chamber, it's comfortable. We've talked before about that, about how we love comfort. As human beings, we love comfort. I don't like drama in my life. I don't like conflict. I like comfort. That's what most people say inside. Now, whenever you go out into the world, you're going to try to find things that are comfortable, and you're going to try to avoid things that are uncomfortable. That's what we do. So whenever we're getting any kind of pushback, we tend to flee from it. So if we have a friend who says, hey, you need to be held accountable for something, we tend to flee from that instead of saying, boy, you're right. Or if somebody tries to say, hey, you need to stop doing this thing or start doing this other thing, we say, I'm getting out of here, instead of saying, yeah, you're right. And that's something that we genuinely tend to do, because we like comfort. We like things that make sense. We don't like things that make us feel uncomfortable. And quite frankly, we start having what's known as cognitive dissonance, where you have the ideas from your head, something conflicts against it, and you start to have that real moment of conscience wrestling, thinking, well, maybe I've been wrong. Nah, it can't be. It has to be everyone else who's wrong, not me. And so we have that problem, and we don't like that tension, because also pride gets in the way, and we don't like to wrestle with pride. So we like to think that we know what's going on. We're confident in what we think and what we believe. We don't like struggle and conflict. We don't like chaos. Don't rock the boat. So we tend to revert back into this little happy place where we're not bothered. You can see how an echo chamber is super easy to get into, because, again, I like to hear competing ideas, but that doesn't mean I actively go out and seek them. When they come across, I tend to want to listen to them, and then I evaluate them and think, is this something I want to wrestle with at this moment or not? And sometimes they are worth my time, and sometimes they're not worth my time. Like if you want to argue us, the United States landing on the moon, I'm not going to wade into time wasting my time fighting with conspiracy theory on that one. But there are certain things like, well, is this moment in history crucial because of X, Y, and Z? Or is it an ABC thing? that's a lot more fun for me to wrestle with, because now we can actually discuss those things, and we can look at, all of these pieces of evidence. We can look at all of these competing theories, and we can discuss those things. And when you are open and willing to hear competing theories, to evaluate competing evidence, that's when life gets actually interesting. Because if you are in an echo chamber, life will get boring. Because everyone thinking the same as you, repeating back things the same as you, gets stale. And you're never challenged to try something new. Think of the idea of like trying new food. Maybe you've never had a certain kind of food before. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I like pizza. And why try something different because I like pizza? Well, then eat pizza for 3 weeks straight. Eventually you get to the point of saying, I would like something a little bit different. I mean, you can only vary the toppings so much, and then you get to a point of, I'd like something different. Well, what's different? Well, there are hamburgers. Well, so you try a hamburger. You're like, well, that's actually pretty good. So maybe I'll let hamburgers into my life. But still, you only have a couple things there, and you're going from pizza to hamburgers. It's still a bread. It's still a meat. It's still cheese and some type of condiment. It's not radically different. I mean, you probably never thought of hamburgers and pizza as the same thing. But, neither have I until right now. But hey, it's one of those things where you just have to wrestle with, okay, now I've opened myself to that. What else am I willing to open myself to and try it? The key thing that's important here is try it. This is not saying you have to like it or even love it. There are a lot of competing ideas out there. I'm willing to entertain and listen to and evaluate. That doesn't mean I have to adopt them. And that's something that's terribly lost in today's society. When we get ourselves in our echo chambers, we think we're right, everyone outside the chamber's wrong. I'm not going to waste any time thinking about them, and I'm only going to think negatively about those people who have those views. So we've gone from I don't want to hear the view to now I don't even want to hear the person. Hear how dangerous that is? I mean, there are lots of people out there that we can easily paint with a broad brush and say, you're not worth hearing. You, not your ideas, you are not worth hearing. That's dangerous, because now you are fully in the echo chamber, where just not the ideas, but the people who want to say them are now a problem. Again, this doesn't mean you have to embrace and love them and hold them tight and say, your ideas are my ideas now. Your beliefs are my beliefs now. If you end up going that way, fine. But that's not the way we want to go. Go back to Aristotle and the way that he looked at enlightenment. I mean, for him, enlightenment wasn't like sitting on a mountaintop, coming up with some kind of grand wave of wisdom hitting you. It was engaging with other people. And for him, enlightenment was learning. Do you like learning? And that's a struggle that I see in colleges right now. Students, many of them, do not have an appreciation of learning, let alone a love of learning. Do you want to learn? Do you love to learn? And if you're willing to learn, you're going to find out some of the things that you know and believe maybe are not true or right or proper. And that's okay if you take an Aristotelian enlightenment method to play. So I'm going to listen to you and your ideas. I'm going to be respectful. You're going to listen to my ideas, and you're going to be respectful. Then we're going to start talking about those ideas, and we're going to enjoy the fellowship that happens of sharing ideas. At the end of the day, maybe you convince me. And that's okay, because now I've learned something, not just about the idea, but also about you and the things that you know and believe. Maybe I convince you, and that's okay, because now we know more about each other, and now you know my ideas and views. That's okay. It's okay to change your mind, as long as you're not like wishy-washy and flipping with every kind of breeze that comes along. But typically, if you are willing to sit and talk with somebody, and again, think how open you have to be to do that, especially when you're deep in an echo chamber. You don't want to step outside those walls. To step outside, to be willing to step outside, to listen to another person, to be willing to open yourself to say what you believe, to be willing to keep your mouth shut and listen to them say what they believe, and then have a discussion about the ideas. Not attacking the other person, not having them attack you, but wrestling with the ideas. And at the end of the day, whichever competing idea wins, that's fine, because you both have learned about the ideas and about each other. And something that's also sorely lost, maybe we agree to disagree. Again, I've got my beliefs. Some of them are very deep-seated beliefs, like religion is very important to me. So what I believe is very deeply rooted. It's going to take a lot of argumentation to get me to move that flag. It's pretty well planted. Where to get my favorite pizza? That's not very deeply planted. I might like this place, I might like this place, I might like this place, depending on the day. So if you say, hey, you want to try this new pizza place, I'm likely to go, sure, let's go try it out, and plant the flag somewhere else. And that's okay, So sometimes those wrestling with ideas is very, very difficult. Sometimes it's very, very loose. But, sometimes we just agree to disagree. So on those very deeply planted things, you say, I think this about biblical Christianity. And I say, well, I think this about biblical Christianity. And we share our evidences, we share our thoughts, we share our opinions. At the end of the day, I didn't sway you, you didn't sway me. We agree to disagree. Here's the tricky part. Just because we agree to disagree doesn't mean I have to hate you. Can you imagine, talking about like politics today? Oh, you voted for so-and-so. Why? Oh, I think these things. Oh, okay. Why'd you vote for the other person? Because I think these things. Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, we disagree, but that's okay. I mean, no one says that anymore. It used to be common, but no one says that anymore. It's now I hate your idea. I hate you. We can never be friends again. And you see terrible things like families separate over political beliefs or religious beliefs or whatever, instead of saying, well, you are a human being. You are worthy of respect. And from a Christian standpoint, you are made in the image of God. Therefore, I need to understand and discern that you are worthy of existing and having opinions and beliefs. I don't have to agree with them. But at the end of the day, it's okay if I don't agree with them, as long as I still respect and cherish you. A biblical mandate is I'm supposed to love my neighbor. I'm also supposed to love my enemies. I'm supposed to love everybody. Boy, that's a challenge, isn't it? But we choose to. I mean, if we throw people out because of certain ideas or beliefs, if we engage in cancel culture and say, I just don't want to deal with you anymore, I'm going to pretend you don't exist, that's anti-biblical. And it's also a really lousy way to live a life, because then you let other people dictate how you're supposed to be, and quite frankly, it degrades who you are as a person. To shut people out, to pretend they don't exist, is a lousy way to live your life. So, again, when it comes to this whole idea of echo chambers, it's okay to have beliefs. It's okay to have ideas. It's okay to have thoughts. It's okay to believe those things. It's okay to enjoy fellowship with people who have those ideas. On my Facebook account, I've gotten to the point where most of the people on my Facebook profile are people who think a lot of the way I do. There are some people who don't. That's fine. I don't chase them off or unfriend them or get rid of them. But that's pretty much who they are. But I recognize that that's my Facebook life. And I just don't want drama. When I go on Facebook, I want to see how friends are doing. I want to see how other kids are doing. I want to understand, people struggle so I can pray for them. Things like that. That's my Facebook life. That's what I want from that world. So I don't pursue drama there. When I step into my real world, as a college professor, I'm surrounded with people who have different opinions and different beliefs. I mean, you want to find an echo chamber, go to a university or a college. You're going to find that 90+% have a certain mindset. Same thing in media and news media in Hollywood. 90+% have a certain mindset. Those are echo chambers, and they are very, very thick echo chambers. So for me to walk into one of those echo chambers is a challenge. It's a challenge for them. It's also a challenge for me, because I have to be willing to hear all kinds of opposing views. Sometimes it's really heavy-handed, but it's one of those things that I'm comfortable with who I am and how I can articulate my beliefs. But again, in the real world, I can't hide, because I can't do my job if I went and hid from every opposing viewpoint, every opposing thought. And also, again, I don't want to be that person who says, well, you and I are different. I'm going to shut you out of my life and pretend you don't exist. Or I don't like you, so I'm going to pretend you don't exist. I don't have time. I don't have that luxury to have that kind of mindset and belief. And besides, my Christian mindset doesn't allow me to have that kind of belief. So I strive then to move into the world. Not that I chase conflict, but I'm willing to discuss and work through those things and recognize people as being in the image of God and respecting them as people, maybe wrestling with their ideas, but not with the person. So when you think about moving forward into this new year of ours, and you start thinking of how can I, continue to make sure that my thoughts are okay and good, the only way to know that is to wrestle with other thoughts. And if you change your mind, that's okay. Again, Aristotle and his idea of enlightenment, wrestle with those thoughts. Wrestle with the thoughts. And you might end up making some new friends and learning some new things along the way. Thank you very much for tuning in today. And if you would, please give me a like, a share, and a subscribe. And if you didn't like what you heard, that's okay. Thank you very much for hanging around this long. But I hope to catch you again next time on Communicology.